Hi there, I'm Bob from Creation Station. Welcome to Creation Station Monthly. This is our monthly show where we talk to two creative people. We give them some kind of ideas about what we want to see, what we want to do, and we hear how they've been creative in their life. What do they think about doing and what do they want to create further on? Yeah, that word create, we use it a lot around here. Today is all about being cutting edge technology. And I've got two people here that are really interesting in this field. Chad Mairn, how are you doing, sir?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing great. And Prof, how are you doing today?
Good man. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
So Chad, I'm gonna have you go off first. Give us a quick little bio of you about what you're doing and what you do with your life right now.
My name's Chad. I work at St. Petersburg College, and I'm a librarian, but I manage the Innovation Lab, and it's a space. I call it a technology playground, and we kind of introduce new technologies, let people know what's possible with these new technologies. And so it ranges from, you know, 3D design and printing to robotics, coding, augmented and virtual reality, that sort of thing. So it's been really fun to kind of show off that stuff, let people know it's possible. I'm also a musician too, so I'm actually playing in three bands right now, which is
That is
a little
awesome. That
nutty.
is just awesome.
One is just like a reunion thing, so it's just like just playing for a show, but yeah, that keeps me pretty busy. So, but it's fun. I love it.
Let's go, Bob. You're muted.
Yeah, we just had some background noise here that I was just muting right away. So tell us,
Oh.
Prof, what do you got going on with your life? What's going on here? Tell us about you.
So I think picking up what Chad said, like I like to do a lot of creative things with technology, and I think that's become our like liaison de art, or we're like the intersection of various arts and technology. So we try not to do just one thing. Like as you know, Bob, we do a lot of game development, and game development is like a combination of music, animation, programming, and then speaking to what Chad said, we have things like even have a robot band. We have like a bunch of robot drummers that keep beat with an actual human musician. So
Huh.
that's the type of stuff where, like, yeah, if you saw a robot in, you know, a robot by itself, that'd be cool. But if you saw a robot with humans doing the same thing, that's amazing. So,
Mhm.
but it's still, the thing about it is, it's the same programming for the robot, but putting it in a setting where it's actually like very unique and very inspiring. I think, from the point of view of Creation Station, that's what we're going for.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea there. Tell us, Chad.
Yeah, I love the idea too of kind of jamming with a robot, because if you think about it, you could tell the robot, you could program the robot to do like an ostinato pattern that gets really boring for the human to play, but the robot's going to not complain, and it's going to play exactly what you want it to play, and then you can kind of comp on top of it. That would be pretty fun to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Did you
And
guys
I
see
think,
the new one that Amazon just put out today?
I don't know what's that.
They put out Astro. It's basically their version of a little Jimbo slash Roomba type thing. They go around on the floor and
Hmm.
stuff like that. Same kind of idea. You made me think about that, Prof, when you were saying about playing music, because it's basically an echo that drives around, follows behind you, playing your music for you.
Huh, that's cool.
Yeah, and you think about it, right? Like people like Astro, that's such a common term, and I think like those type of terms, like the term Astro, already makes you evoke, your childhood or whatever you're into, about maybe some cartoon or Jetsons or something, right? And so I think naming your robot, naming your technology in a way that's can also immediately tell people what it's about. I think that's kind of cool too. And so obviously Amazon did a good job naming their robot. So actually, I'm saying that because our dog's name is Astro as well. We have a robot dog. We use out of like donated, and then we 3D print parts. And if you
Nice.
recall, yeah, we did the world's first magically blockchain robotic scavenger hunt at TEDx Boca Raton, where we led 300 people on the scavenger hunt through Brick to find the room that Bill Gates originally signed the contract with IBM PC. And And it was kind of awesome because it was anticlimactic because that room now is actually a mailroom. So getting 300 people to go to a mailroom, that was actually like the best part, right? People are surprised that they're all being led into a mailroom by a dog,
Yeah.
wearing a
You
magically
you
pet
mentioned
set.
it. You mentioned blockchain, right? Is that what you said?
Yep, yep.
That's cool. How did that part work?
So it's cool because I'll actually, I think Bob has on my Twitter link, but I'll retweet this so you all can see it later on when you're watching this episode. But you know, from the point of view of the people who are attending a TEDx talk, they're there to be like, partially entertained, but also educated. Maybe,
Mhm.
yeah, Bob, you can just search for do Pravi and then dog, you'll see it. So
Gotcha.
basically, yeah. So basically, we do something called the AI Blockchain Alliance at University of Miami. So part of the AI is probabilistic, while blockchain is deterministic. And the point of the scavenger hunt, yeah, it was entertaining, but to show how the intersection of technologies can make a unique experience or unique things that aren't possible with either one. So what the dog was doing is the reinforcement learning was getting something we call Scooby snacks. It obviously, you say the term Scooby snack, people already immediately know what it was, right? The Scooby snacks were basically like Pac-Man pellets along the way the path the dog was literally following. So the reinforcement learning was basically, finding the dog finding the pellets. And the magically pet set, it was kind of gratuitous. The dog actually didn't need it, but anyone else who had a phone or a magically pet set could see what the dog was seeing, because the dog was just, was actually kind of already a little bit was didn't actually have to see it. But yeah, but it's kind of cool though because it was a magically VP of healthcare there, so I want to show her. Um, yeah, so
By the way,
basically,
everybody who
the
is just
reward
tuning into
system
this
was
episode
the
and you haven't
HR.
seen our episodes before, we just threw out like 26 terms that you may or may not know, and we'll try and follow up on them in the comments, and you come back and we'll teach you all about it in Creation Station.
Well,
So I want to get
but you
you
did
guys.
scroll there, like you did
Yeah,
see the William Shatner stuff. I guess William Shatner's
yeah.
going to space now with Amazon's Jeff Bezos. So that's a blockchain right there. We did the exclusive William Shatner NFT last summer,
Mhm.
and we got he did the only ever video interview with us last summer about blockchain. And you guys should definitely watch that, or if you want to play clips of it. It's the first time he's ever talked about, about like the afterlife, meditation, him living in India. He even talked about
Mhm.
how blockchain can preserve your consciousness after passing.
Hmm.
So very interesting. So yeah, we sold out in 3 minutes. We sold 120,000
Nice.
NFTs. But again, the intersection, right? It
Hmm.
was like it was physical memorabilia from his life with the virtual. So the two things are very unique type of NFTs. But yeah, even if you're not in NFTs, watch the video. You can learn a lot
Yeah.
about his
We'll,
life.
we'll
And now
we'll
he's
put links up
90.
to those things there for people. Yeah. So Chad, let me lead you off with a different type of question here. When did you first feel you were being creative like this? Because most people think about creativity as painting or dancing or writing a novel. But now we all know, I mean, whether you call them a geek or whether you call them whatever, we're all being creative now in this different way in technology. How did you feel like you stumbled into that?
I think it's more problem solving for me in a way because, you have to be creative. You have to think creatively that way to solve problems a lot of the times. And I used to like to take things apart even as a young kid. When before I was married and had kids, I had computers all over my house. And I was always trying to create my own firewalls and just, trying to kind of just play in that world. But I love taking things apart. Um,
What was your first computer?
an Atari 1040 ST.
Oh, nice. That was actually pretty
Actually looking at
advanced,
it
right?
right now. I wish I could carry it over here, but yeah. And I used to use, and believe it or not, I used to use the Atari 1040 ST, which is a relic at this point. I used to have it in my music studio, and it had almost perfect MIDI timing. So I had all these, high-end computers and stuff doing the recording stuff, but I used the Atari for MIDI because it was solid, and it's sort of like the robot, before where that's all it's focusing on is MIDI. It doesn't do anything else, so it actually does a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, I was actually jealous of the people who had that. My first computer was an Apple IIe, and they all every time you want to do something, you have to buy another card,
Yeah.
slotted card to put in. Like, kind of didn't do much out of the box. Remember the Apple stuff back in the day?
I was on a Commodore VIC-20 and then a Commodore 64. You don't know the pain of tape drives. Come on
Oh
now.
yeah, man. Did
I
you
had a
have
tape
that Lego
drive
Lander
too.
game on VIC-20 on a tape drive?
Yeah.
I
Oh man.
remember the tape drives too. Yep.
Tell us, Prof, how did you get into this? How did you just stumble when you were younger? Did somebody like push you towards this? Did you just kind of stumble into it like Chad? What did you do?
Yeah, I think it was, my dad. He got me a computer for my 10th birthday type thing when we first moved. I wasn't born in the United States, so I think like a lot of immigrant parents, right? I'm from South India. They push their kids into education, to educate their kids. So got started early and then enrolled us in like computer boot camp type thing. So learned. But at the other side also, the downside was when you're trying to do so many different things growing up, you're kind of overscheduled as a kid. I think, yeah, we had the overview, but we never really got into it enough because it was just like a little kid summer camp type thing too. I think having, but now that I understand like what worked with me, obviously your parents do the best they can. But now when we teach seminars, like we teach at Creative Station for Bob, I understand like how kids actually learn, and what's actually like beyond like just I don't want people to just stop at hello world basically. So
What do you guys think about how everybody else in the world views this? I kind of jokingly said earlier, we're just going to have to put a whole glossary after this because you guys are out there on cutting edge. This is why I wanted you both to be on here. Throwing out NFTs and blockchains and MIDI and all the other stuff that other people aren't necessarily going to be using. But what do you think the rest of the world thinks about that right now? Do you think it's become just so much more acceptable or is it that it's still in its own little bubble that the rest of the people aren't following?
I don't know. I think a lot of it is in a bubble, like the blockchain stuff, that's I'm just now kind of dabbling in that and trying to learn more about it. Like I was curious the other day, you hear all about blockchain and I'm like, and you hear that it's decentralized and that we can all hop in and kind of see all the activity happening behind the scenes. And I was like, I've never seen it. You know what I mean? So I actually jumped out, and most people could care less, I think. They're just like, oh, they've heard the term, and I know it has something to do with crypto, and there's a lot more you can do with it, though. You know what I mean? So I actually looked it up the other day. I was like, I want to see what it looks like in real time, and it was pretty cool to kind of see all of the hashing and all that stuff going on behind the scenes. So I think some people like they might know what it is, but they don't really have a curiosity about it to get deep into it.
What do you think, Prof?
yeah, I definitely am on the impression that we learn by doing, and I think like we it's easy to overcomplicate things. Um, so like what I like to do is forget the theory, for a little bit and just get something to work. And then you quickly realize that like a lot of these technologies are interchangeable. So from the real world point of view, you could take the word blockchain out, put the word MySQL or any sort of database in. And when you realize you could do that, then you realize that then you put the philosophy in, the theory in, because if you can do that, just put word database instead of blockchain, then that's not a blockchain app anymore. It's really just, you're just using blockchain as a database. So it's important to understand it from a hands-on point of view, then also the philosophy as well, because we obviously we do a lot of gaming. We're one of the 10 companies at the blockchain gaming finals in San Francisco, one of the only U.S. companies, and that's the thing that I've noticed that like everyone was really into crypto, and sometimes the stuff there wasn't like the best game. It was truly a blockchain game, because if you couldn't just replace the word blockchain with database and be the same game. It actually changed the game design. Everything at the game would be different without a blockchain in there. So
Okay,
yeah, it was
gotcha.
pretty interesting that.
Yeah.
But I think the people were there originally as game designers, and they learned game design first, I mean, probably because blockchain's so new, right? It's just by definition.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then
Yeah.
I think nowadays, you know, just what people learn at CreateStation with all the VR stuff you got there, Bob, you know, the big thing now is metaverse, right? So I think the natural fit is people already learning VR at the CreateStation to get the blockchain. I think the next step is the metaverse. And that's going to be huge because, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, they're saying they're betting the whole company on that. They're not going to be like a web company anymore. They're going to be a metaverse company. And so that's important, I think, for people's careers or just their intellectual interests or their artistic careers, is to, if they're a metaverse engineer, that's a very really good skill set to have now. And since we're in Miami, we happen to be the leaders in that. So you might as well learn it from the best, I guess, down here. Not for me per se, but just in general down here. A lot of people down here.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the metaverse because that's something I'm really interested in too. I've been beta testing this. It used to be an augmented reality app. It's called Spatial, and it allows you to be in 3D space and interacting with holograms and working with 3D content. It's just like sort of the opposite of what we're doing now. You know, we're in 2 dimensions now, but imagine if we were all holographic sitting in the same space talking. And that's what Spatial's doing. And then, and like I said, I've been beta testing it for over 2 years now, and it's starting to get really good. And they switched it now into VR as well. So it's VR and AR. And when you look at that whole pass-through concept, that's kind of a big thing, you know, with the metaverse. But what they've started doing, which I think is cool, is in Spatial, you could have your room. Like I can do a 3D representation of my room. I can scan it with Matterport, and I'm in this room that I'm in now, but we're all in it together virtually. But then they have this portal idea where I can then create another room, like it's maybe in space or whatever. I select the little portal, and next thing you know, I am in this other room. And I asked them, I said, you know, when are you going to be able to have it set to where I can go to a completely different application? And they were like, that's something we're working on. So imagine being in Spatial, you know, meeting virtually in VR or whatever, and then going in and saying, okay, now we're going to meet in Decentraland, or we're going to meet wherever it is, you know, and connect these apps. And then when you look at like stuff like blockchain and cryptos, you know, my son is 11 and he's a huge gamer. And so he's in what's it called, Fortnite. And so he spends all these V-Bucks in Fortnite. And I'm like, he's spending money there. He's not investing, right? So hopefully soon you'll be able to purchase V-Bucks, some kind of digital currency in Fortnite, but take it with you to other games. So I'm seeing this whole metaverse really becoming this true metaverse where we're connecting all these different applications. And that's really exciting, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I like to also, like, you know, bring it down to the level that people can, like your son's level, right? You know, what the people can understand and do today. Because one of the things I learned, you know, is futurists are more like novelists. You know, it's like the hand waving. Yeah, it's cool, but like it almost like defeats the purpose of being a technologist, right? If you can just say anything you want, right, not actually have to do it. So bringing it down a little bit to what people can do at Creation Station, I guess, is the first thing is, you know, defining terms, right? You know, what's the difference between VR and metaverse, right? And we learned this obviously by doing is because last summer we built one of the 8 verses for virtual Burning Man. So obviously Burning Man wasn't in person, but you know, they licensed like some creators. So we're the ones in Miami that built some of the virtual spaces too. And I realized like some of some of it was like a little bit like psychographic. People who go to Burning Man will be also into the virtual Burning Man. But then everyone had their own version. There was 8 verses, right? Basically, some people just do like Zoom call type things. Some people did like just regular, you know, like VR type things. But the thing I noticed is like when people really like got interacted, like thought it was real, like your son thinks that like V-Bucks are real money type thing, is when you combine the physical with the virtual. Like for example, like our verse, you know, you still have the webcam like we're seeing now. Like I'm seeing you, but also see Bob type thing too. So like what I did, you know, was, you know, one of the things I was elf Pravi, right? I had my elf ears from Renaissance Fair, had my cape, and then we had to do the snap AR camera to do virtual hummingbirds around me too. So I think, so people could see in my background, I'm still in my room, but the hummingbirds are there and my physical things here. And then obviously with our sci-fi film festival, we had all our props so people can figure out what's real, what's fake. But that's the point, right? Marrying the physical with the virtual. So I think that scene or that concept was the metaverse because it was a physical place with virtual after to it. I think spatial, I think a lot of times they're a little bit too virtual, not enough metaverse. And you mentioned Matterport, right? So the big thing we're doing tomorrow, we're presenting to the Miami-Dade County Commission, their crypto task force, is we're trying to get a designation to be the crypto corridor in Wynwood. And part of that is we're doing the 3D scanning of whole city blocks down there in Wynwood with Matterports. And we're putting all that into the virtual Burning Man experience. But then you're basically walking through the Miami Art District.
Yeah, that's cool.
And the NFTs on the walls, all the art is basically, so we're doing that through XR Labs, one of the big our XR stuff down here, which Paul knows pretty well.
That's really cool. I have a friend who did something similar. He went to, I forget where though, it was, I forget, but it was a hockey stadium and they had Matterport come out and scan it. And they're creating, it's almost like a Pokemon Go game. It's just not for kids though, it's more for hockey fans. So you walk in and there's all these little coins and stuff floating around, but it looks just like the place. I mean, because you're there, and it's, but as you walk around, all that stuff is virtual. So you are combining those spaces, and that's when it gets exciting too, I think.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Right there, Prof. Did you see the Carolina Panthers for the NFL, their AR Panther that they've got?
Yeah, man, that was awesome. Yeah,
I saw that. That was cool. Yeah.
Because, the whole like virtual camera, virtual production type thing.
Yeah.
DPS.
And that's let me take you right to there, Prof. Because that I think you're going where I was going. What the question really is: what's the ultimate goal here? What is your ultimate? What's the best equipment, best kind of thing you can do? Because like that Carolina Panther thing is only available if you watched it on that one type of thing. Just not anybody could throw up a phone and see it in AR and scan around and see what's going on. You had to do that one type of thing. What do you guys think is the ultimate kind of cutting edge piece of technology that we need? Is it a holodeck from Star Trek? Is it what kind of thing that we need to have to be able to make these ideas all actually come to fruition?
Well, I don't know if you want to go ahead. I just think we're gonna replace these phones with glasses eventually. I think we're gonna be wearing smart glasses, all of us, and we're gonna be able to do most everything that we do on our phones now, but we're gonna have these as screens. So I mean, we're close. I mean, we're already close now. So
battery life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit agnostic.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm a little bit agnostic on how you can even do like AR sound. We do those things with like even with some of the equipment you have, like the bare conductive, the electric paint for the murals and stuff. So I think people can augment their world in a million different ways. So I don't think it's up to me to choose how people choose to experience it. Just stick to the the experience design, so to speak. Because I think in the end, if we have an idea going in exactly how it's going to be, then we're not being as creative also, because we're trying to force things into our own opinion. And I just really want to be like open to failing, open creative, open to other people's ideas.
So tell me about this. You said bare paint, Prof?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so we were one of the finalists for the Singularity University Global Impact Challenge. And that's another thing unique about Miami. We're one of the few cities in the world that actually has a Singularity chapter. And part of the reason is because I think one of the co-founders of Singularity University lives here in Miami. So yeah, they did a sea level rise project. And then some of Bob's and I's friends, we visualized Miami year 2030, half underwater, if sea level rise isn't mitigated. So we dressed our friends up in suits and had a paddleboard to work and filmed it in VR. And then like any sort of transmedia experience, right? That was our opening, enter the rabbit hole type thing. So they're talking to the camera. So it's year 2030. We should have done something about the roads. So yeah, we'll put up the link on Twitter for that as well. It's kind of cool, And then the Matterport thing too, you know, we had had me and snorkeling gear and flip flop in the flippers with my laptop up on the shore, saying this is your co-working space in the future. You have to wear out. But yeah, but making it entertaining and
Yeah.
But the point is, so we built in the old Wynwood Yard, yeah, Wynwood Yards area. It's not there anymore, but we did the augmented sound murals that are solar powered. So basically, we took Arduino boards and attached them to basically to the surface of murals, and the murals themselves were coated with electric paint. So and then we added additional capacitors to it. So as you walk by or touch the murals, they would talk to you about sea level rise. And if obviously if you took your phone out or they had a Bluetooth sensor as well, they'd give you additional information. But most people I noticed are like when you're going to an art walk or looking for murals, you don't want your phone out all the time. So the sound was perfect because it created automatic interaction. And plus it was delightful, surprising. Because no one expected like murals to talk to you type thing.
It's a
And
cool idea.
yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's not there anymore. Developers made it into condos that area. So
Oh man. Yeah, I'd like to see video of that or something. That sounds really pretty cool.
And Chad, you teach kids how to do that kind of stuff because I've seen Chad stuff online about teaching the kids how to use Arduinos and how to do voice and how to program them for creating their own individual voice things. You guys have done, you know, how to create your own echo. Tell
Yeah.
us about that with because Prav's doing it all with adults. You're doing it mostly with kids, right?
Well, I mean, I'm lucky actually. I mean, I work at a college, so I mean, I work with faculty and students and all that. But I'm also in a joint use library system. So, you know, I've got the public here, and so I work with a lot of kids and homeschooling and all that. So, and like the boys and girls clubs and stuff. So it's really kind of neat to share that kind of stuff, you know, and build something with an Arduino or like we've done some like we've built our own like digital assistant before, and we've built our own little AI. Um, it's like Google Lens basically. We've built one of those ourselves where I can do like confidence scores and like, you know, so these little kids are actually helping build this stuff, you know, where they can have a little Raspberry Pi camera and they can hold it up and it looks around and the TensorFlow software actually detects what they're looking at. I'm really starting to get into the GPT-3 language, natural language processing now. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but
Yeah.
there's some really wild things going on. And, you know, like the friend I mentioned before that's doing the AR development, he showed me this little AR character that he created, and he was kind of like, "What do you think of this?" I'm like, "I don't know. It's kind of boring. Like, it doesn't really do anything. You know, it's like jumps around and does its thing." And I'm like, have you ever thought about maybe trying to figure out a way to implement that GPT-3 where the thing maybe talks back to you, or, you know, you can communicate with it, which seems like it might be a little ways away, but, you know, that would be pretty fun, you know?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
yeah, going back to your thing, working with kids has been really good because they're not afraid to fail. They're not afraid to do something wrong, you know? So it's very rewarding working with kids.
yeah, definitely. I think like what's also good is like you know what you did with combining the adults with kids, but I think they can feed off each other, just like you know
Yeah,
multi-generational. Each person and you know adults can remember what it was like to be a kid as well,
true.
as long as they're like you know not like you know patronizing the kid too. They're you know treating them as
Yeah.
like you know almost like maybe not equals, but like you know literally like learning together, right? You know,
Yeah.
learning in different ways. And I like so the way we've been teaching and I even been working is we kind of create like let people create the toolboxes and fill them with their creations. So for example, that singularity thing too. The original Arduino technology we built for a maker fair, you know, not for another project that was it was a maker no first was a Great Miami Makeathon. So we built like this Arduino project for the Great Science Barge. Then we took it to the maker fair and all these kids started dancing to our Biggie songs and stuff with the murals. Then we realized, well, rather than just doing break dancing, you could do it for like you know social impact. So that same project, it kept getting upgraded, right? So I think that's even how programmers work as well, and kids will quickly learn that is most programmers, they don't start a new project from line zero, right? They actually have other tools they built over years, other modules and stuff. And we're doing the same thing. There's no way we would be able to do anything we're doing if every project had to start from zero. Then every project would take a year, and we only have a day really. So, and the GPT-3 is scary, scary cool, man. Like
it is.
Yeah, we
I
have the
did a
Miami
little bit of
Sci-Fi.
experimenting with it. It's crazy.
Yeah, we have the Miami Sci-Fi Film Festival. So I've been taking like the synopsis, just literally the IMDb, like one paragraph to some of the films that are in our festival, and giving you nothing else, man. I mean, the GPT-3 can make a little script basically. That's pretty accurate, based upon like what a sequel for that movie would be like.
Yeah, I hear there's GPT-4s coming out now, which is going to be even obviously crazier. There was an article I just read. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but this I guess it was a kid at the time. Well, not a kid, but he's probably in his early 20s. His fiance passed away, and he was so heartbroken by this. So he created a tool, like a chatbot based off GPT-3, and he just put a little bit of information about his fiance that just passed away into that system, and he started chatting with her. And it got to a point where he had to end up kind of turning the chatbot off because it was her, and it was freaking him out a little bit. But it's a really just kind of a heartbreaking, but at the same time, just mind-blowing article about this, where he was
and when you feed it enough information about the person, and it's interesting. We did a thing on the weekly show just a couple of weeks ago about voice, doing it that way, because you'll soon be able to just do anybody's voice and have it come out any way you want. It's gonna be interesting.
One other thing about the GPT-3 that's pretty awesome is there's a bunch of people building apps, and there's APIs now, and where you could just speak to the system and say, hey, this is what I want the app to do, give it a little bit of descriptive language, and it does a lot of the programming for you. Not all of it. You still have to have the human side to kind of go in and fix stuff to make it work correctly. But I mean, it gets you a good head start. And that's just mind-blowing to think about too.
So this is a good example of why libraries are so important, because a lot of things that you mentioned, with, for example, the deceased fiance, the backstory is even sadder, basically, about how the technology companies and such, basically he basically created the chatbot, right? But the technology company behind it shut it down. It wasn't him, basically. So we see this over and over again, where this era of big tech, they have so much power. We need an alternative, like community organizations as well. And everyone can have a meetup or things like that too, but the library system is really set up for free speech and open collaboration. So the more people, more kids, more people we can get involved, because it's even good for technology too. The right to repair, it's a big deal too. If no one knows how to how to program an Arduino, even if you had the right to repair, we wouldn't be able to repair anything, right? You don't have the skill sets. And even from things like national security, things like that too. Kids learn by doing or breaking or whatever it is, or being a little bit naughty sometimes, not in a bad way, but like all these people are saying, cyber warfare is the new warfare, right? Well, how do you even get those skills, right? You don't learn cyber security by sitting in Zoom school in a college, right? You learn it by doing. And that's exactly what Bob is offering, through Hack Miami and stuff. People are literally sitting in the creation station trying to hack into like a server as part of an experiment, but in a safe space.
And
but
you lead me to a good question for you both. How do you, because you both have stumbled into this career. It's something that all three of us have, that this is something we do, but how does someone turn it into a career? Like you were saying, Prav, where do you push that line where someone can say, yeah, this is where I need to go to get to it in a more, or is there not a really great formalized way of getting there yet? I always say it's don't go for the degree, go for the skills, and take the classes that are going to be interesting for you and that you're going to learn the stuff so that you can do what you want to do rather than conform to some particular, piece of paper thing. What do you guys think? How do you turn this kind of stuff into a career realistically?
Yeah, I think Elon Musk is doing a good job of that too, where he's trying to like fight against the concept of being over credentialed, or just so he's saying all his job listings won't require a college degree or whatever degree they used to require. If you have the skill sets, doesn't matter how you got them. And the reality is, even if you do have a college degree, you still need these skill sets, right? So, for example, I went to one of my degrees from University of Florida in computer engineering, and half the people in my classes, they're not engineers. They never were. They went to marketing right after college.
Mhm.
And maybe part of it is, I don't know, maybe their parents wanted to be engineers or whatever it is. They weren't willing to fail and really learn to be an engineer. They were so worried about their GPAs and such. And the good thing about Creation Station is there's no one grading you. You're doing it because you want to
Yeah.
learn. You're learning from your peers. That's the best, most pure way of, like, if you're ancient Greece, right? You'd learn by debating your peers, right? And that's what we're doing too. There's no right answer, especially new technologies, right? And if you really want to learn something, there's not someone with like 20 years experience saying you're doing it wrong, because this technology, like NFTs, is literally
It
like
hasn't
2 years old.
existed for what, 2
Yeah, so
years? Some of it's been around for like GTP3, like we were just talking about. It's only been around for what, 18, 24 months, something like that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
like to say, like, I might know more than you, but I only have two more weeks ahead of you, right? You can catch up in 2 weeks if I take a break. So
Right.
that's the
What
thing.
do you
It's
think about
level
that
setting. Yeah.
there, Chad, for leading on? Because you've got a full degree in library science, right?
Yeah, which, I'm looking back, it was a complete waste of time. I hate to say it, but it's true. I'm also I work in higher education, right? And I pretty much know that the education system is broken, because we do focus too much on grades and we do focus too much on degrees. I mean, I've worked with computer programming professors here where these students get their computer science degree or their computer programming degree and they can't code themselves out of a paper bag. You go in and, like Google, for example, does not really care too much about what school you went to. They're going to present you with a problem and they're going to say, write something for this, fix this. And if you don't know how to do that, if you haven't memorized something, we do so much memorization that that's a big issue. You're not gonna make it. So for me, I remember going into graduate school and I was very interested in technology back then, programming and that sort of thing. And this was 100 years ago at least. But I remember asking them, hey, can I take classes in the computer science department and get my credential or get my degree in library and information science? And they were always no, 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 no. Like, okay, so I'll take this PowerPoint class that I can probably teach to you, you know what I mean? And just sat there and I didn't have to even study 1 second of it and I aced all this stuff. So for me, graduate school, the curriculum was not really good. So I come in here and then I start to get really interested in like early on, like networking. Like I had to learn how to do the networking stuff because nobody in my library system did it. And it's either our computers are all down, broken, or I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to figure out how to do this. And so I did that from the beginning, right? And then learned how to do all this stuff. And so I started developing a vocabulary to talk tech. So I worked really well with the IT departments through the cities and stuff, you know? Um, and we were all kind of on the same page. And then I got to the college and got really interested in like I guess you could call it the maker movement. Um, and so really to get that job where I am now, I created it myself. I don't know how many jobs exist. I mean, I think Rob, you're the same way.
Yeah.
I think you've probably created your job.
Oh, yeah. The county had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
When
And
they
so,
hired me, they had this concept of a small little room and there's a 3D printer and somebody's got to
yeah,
talk to people about it. And I've turned it into this
yeah.
craziness. Yeah.
So you and I are very similar. We have the very similar things and it's great. I'm extremely lucky, but nothing I learned in school would have brought me to where I am. And
Yeah.
I hate to say that, I really do, but it's true.
Well, to give some practical advice, people listening to the video about if you do need money, do need a job right now, and you don't have one, there's almost 8 billion people, 7.5 billion people in the world right now. So the chances of you being the best at anything are like, I mean, you do the math, right? You're better off winning the lottery, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
someone wins, but it's not going to be you, most likely. So it really it's about how do you cut down the odds in your favor, right? And like at the beginning of the video, right, I said we're masters at intersections of technology or creativity or different domains, right? So like remember the Venn diagrams, right? You can have multiple overlapping ovals, right? And the more overlapping you can do, the smaller the subset is, right? So you take two high value domains, like in our case, AI and blockchain or filmmaking, whatever it is that you're into, make sure you're actually interested in both things, but also that they're
That's
high
a key thing
value.
right there, Prof. I
Yeah.
get so many people, oh, well, how are you going to make money? No, what are you interested in? Don't worry about
Interested
the
in.
money side first.
Right.
What are you interested in?
Yeah.
So say they're interested in something that doesn't make money, right? Say it's like say it's like some sort of like very like
Say musician.
yeah,
Do
third,
fashion.
like maybe Baroque 13th century French art, whatever. I don't even know that's a thing, right? I'm just making it up, right?
Sure, it is. Everything is a
It's
thing.
interesting.
There's a
It's
niche.
interesting to you, right? You hang out at the
Yeah.
library with Bob and I and Chad. You have your friends, but you gotta eat, right? So
Yeah.
then you take something like that and you combine your interest with something that's actually high value, right? So now you're the expert in the French 9th, 13th century Baroque thing with this other cutting edge technology, which you might not be as interested in, but at least you can have focus, right? And that's exactly what Steve Jobs did. Steve Jobs was an engineer. He dropped out, but even before he dropped out, he was basically like into calligraphy. And that's what he took classes in, the typography at some Oregon Art University too. But that became his guiding light, right? Throughout his career, he got really good at it because he was interested. It was always about design, what looked good. He's kind of nitpicky about fonts, whatever it is. He knew enough about technology and business, but he said to the very end, he said he didn't understand accounting, but he still built the biggest tech company in the world. But he had his interest in something, but he combined something else. And yeah, I think that's the way to get a job. Basically, is create an expertise in a smaller domain, basically with less competition. And then going back to what Chad said about the value of degrees, we actually have something in Miami called Nerd Night once a month. So this summer there was a PhD student candidate who came down from Michigan State. I mean, he came down to visit his parents because he's from Florida, but he was doing his PhD at Michigan State. But he mentioned something really interesting. He said, like, you can predict someone's final GPA, year 4 final GPA of college based upon their SAT scores in 11th grade, right?
Huh.
Which tells me two things. One is like, yeah, you can look at it different ways, right? I look at it as glass half full. So I'm thinking there's much room for improvement in how colleges educate people too, because that means they're not adding any value. If you're already, I think obviously Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg figured that out when they dropped out of college themselves, right? But if people really want to add value, then you should add value, right? If you're going to predict someone's like GPA even before they started the program, then what value you're adding, or there's no level there's no other than like it's almost like participation ribbon at that point. So and I mean the biggest thing is even beyond SATs is like what high school you went to too, if you went to a private high school, etc. too, which makes it even worse because
see, we're going to get Prof back in here on a whole education equity program or something like this.
It's
and
equity,
legacy stuff. Yeah.
But I don't want to be preachy about it, because, you can't blame, you can't blame a upper middle class family for wanting to educate their kids, right? Upper middle class is still a very large competition. They're not like billionaires, right? They're just upper middle class. They can still send their kids to private schools. You can't blame them per se. It's above their, whatever it is. So, but even then, they're being failed by colleges also. Like Chad's saying, they get all these degrees, but it's stuff that the colleges, the time they spent in college is almost like just growing up, but not actually
Yeah.
learning, right? They join a fraternity, whatever it is, they enjoy themselves, but they could have done so much more.
I have a real quick little story that I love to tell. So I was doing it was like a field trip. It was a field trip for, I want to say it was 5th grade. And there was probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 kids. This was before COVID. And I was doing my little, whatever, my little presentation. And there was this one kid I remember, and he kept asking these really just super smart questions. And he had his vocabulary was really well developed. And I was like, wow, this is incredible. This kid is really smart, and that's great. And it was a good conversation. But then after the discussion part, we actually had a hands-on STEM activity, and we split the groups up. And it was a simple activity. It was just basically like, hey, here's the scenario. There's a flood coming in. You've got these little index cards with a couple things that you're going to make a bridge, and the bridge has to be, I don't know, 6 inches tall, and it has to support this stuffed animal, right? That kid a minute ago that was so smart, had all these words memorized and all these concepts memorized, was horrible at this hands-on activity. And the table where there was a couple girls working, they were a team. They got through it and won the competition. And the really, the intelligent, I don't want to say the other girls weren't intelligent. This kid had a different intelligence to him. And he got so pissed off because he couldn't do the critical thinking. He couldn't do the problem solving side, and it was I was like, wow, because I just assumed this kid was going to hop right in and do this and solve this problem, but he had no skills whatsoever to do that. And I think that's very telling. I think a lot of people suffer from that, where they might ace the SAT, but then you present them with a real world problem and they are clueless because they didn't memorize the solution for it. And I think that's sort of what we're doing in our spaces, is we're trying to promote this critical thinking, problem solving skill. So,
one quick question to wind up with both of you guys because we got to get out here. We're hitting on our edge here. Chad, what's the biggest failure that you got? What's the thing that you tried and failed at?
Well, I was working with a guy who was doing a biotech thing, and we had all these pipes and tubes in there. It was supposed to come up with some kind of like alternative fuel with like a bacteria or something. And
I remember that project. Yeah.
It was great on paper and it looked great. And we brought all this stuff in. I did so much work, like physical labor, and it never came through. It just completely failed. And it was too bad because I sweat, like physically sweat a lot to do it. And it just never happened. Very frustrating. There's been a million other failures too, but that's a real good one. I think.
How about you, Prof? What's the big failure? What's the big, huge failure that you can admit to?
I think like, when I become single-minded, so focused on something that I know I'm in the danger zone, I think I have to learn to become more, I've learned that basically from these failures, is become like self-aware, self-reflective, because if you think you know the answer, you probably don't. And it's general. Obviously there's individual failures, but the general philosophy is I was just like that one kid you're talking about, Chad, right? So I thought I was so like, yeah, you do, I'm right type thing. And even if you are, you're missing you're missing a story of what you're supposed to be doing there. It's not always about winning as well, because even if you win, like, what did you win, right? You won a library kind of competition, right? That wasn't the point. Why are you there?
Yeah. Good point.
That is an excellent way to end it for us there, Prof. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Prof, both very much for being here this month and talking about this kind of stuff. I'm going to throw up our end slide here real quick. Again, Creation Station Monthly. You can reach us at creationstation@broward.org. If you have any questions, I can always forward them on to our guests. The links to what we showed for their sites will be up on the downloads for you also. And until next month, stay safe, everybody.